Good evening, everyone. This is Richard Greenberg, president of ISSA Los Angeles, welcoming you to our August virtual meeting. As we do each month since the pandemic started, we are coming to you through the wonders of the internet, but hopefully we can get in person again. We had hoped by now we'd be having some in-person meetings, but that darn Delta variant is ruining our plans, but we're staying strong. We're still collaborating online, and we welcome you. I'm glad you can join us. A little bit about us. Here's our board of directors, an incredible group of individuals who I'm proud to associate with. I want to thank them again, as I do in each meeting, for all the work they do, not just in keeping the organization alive and doing outreach and keeping information up there on the on social media, but also we meet as a monthly board to put on these events and to come up with good trainings. And we still intend in 2022 to put on a conference for all of you again. I can't imagine that this will drag out past that, but I think I remember saying that last year. So we'll see what happens, but that's our intention. So hang with us. And again, kudos to my wonderful team. You can join our community too, if you haven't already. If you just go to ISSA-LA.org, in the upper right, there's a button you can click so you can receive our monthly emails. Not spam, it's not much at all. It's just information about our meetings and about maybe giving some money to me on the side, but that's about it. We have our educational sponsors. I'd like to thank very much for their contributions. They've taken off a percentage of their normal prices for us. So go check out any of these four wonderful organizations that are collaborating with us and improve your knowledge to fight cybercrime and to keep your data safe. And of course, you can connect with us. We're in social media in a variety of places. If you're 30 and over, you can join us on Facebook. Under 30, we are on Instagram. And of course, Twitter and LinkedIn are our primary. And Meetup we share, but we're sharing the same thing as if you come to our website. So it's up to you. Either way, you can keep abreast of what's going on. A couple of upcoming meetings. We have Chris Cleary, who was the first U.S. Naval CISO, and now he's been promoted to Principal Cyber Advisor. He's the key liaison between the Navy and Homeland Security and the government. He'll be giving a talk. I don't think you want to miss that. Usually these types of individuals can literally share war stories. So that should be pretty exciting. And we're putting together a ransomware panel in October. We've got confirmation from a wonderful CISO who I've known for, my goodness, over a decade, Bruce Phillips. He's very entertaining. And then Michael Sohn from the FBI, special agent here in Los Angeles. He'll have lots to share about ransomware, how the FBI is addressing it, recommendations. Maybe we can convince him to share a couple of pretty interesting stories for us. That should be very cool. And we've got some more stuff planned ahead. Nothing confirmed. That's why I'm just listing a couple. There was supposed to be a happy hour in there in person, but we're gonna have to hold off on that one, as I mentioned earlier. If you'd like to ask some questions today of our speaker, you can follow along by going to app.sli.do. We're using Slido, which is a nice app. And if you just enter ISSA-LA, then you can ask questions and we'll see that. We'll address them all later on. So definitely try to engage with us. So it's not just listening to Deviant, but also maybe having a little dialogue there. I think that's always a good thing when we can engage. And if you want to do it anonymously, you can, or if you want to list your name, we can do that as well. Your choice. And now, without further ado, we want to see what life is like through the eyes of a thief. Deviant Olem is going to share his thoughts on security in our physical world. Deviant, it's really a pleasure to have you here. Thank you. I know we were working back and forth to try to find the date, and I really appreciate you making the time and joining us. And you can take over if you have slides or if you just want to talk to everyone. I'm going to go into hiding. So it's all yours, my friend. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I really do appreciate that. And yeah, if folk only knew the amount of back and forth trying to, you'd think during a pandemic, everyone has more time because we're not traveling quite as much, but yeah, it's somehow we have less. So I'm really glad to be here. I really appreciate everything you did to make it come and happen. And for those who don't know me, right, my name is Deviant Olaf. I am a, well, I am a guy that you'd think is a nice guy if you met me, but other people don't think so. I mean, I have a little anecdote where I was arriving to a meeting. I was going to meet someone, at their building, and I show up and, just waiting to be let in. And before I even get inside, right, like I can look at this building and I can see, okay, I know what kind of intercom system they have. I know what kind of badge technology they're using. I know there's a pretty good chance just from this scene alone, if you got a little closer to it, you could read it. And I could tell you, oh, well, there's clearly Verizon infrastructure on the roof because I could see a little sticker, oh, this is a key box for a Verizon employee that probably has to go up there. So I could probably enter this building at all hours, look like I belong there, not get, interdicted, because it's my job to do that. It's my job to break into places. If I look at the front door, right, I actually was calling the contact and I said, okay, yeah, you want to come down and meet me, or you let me in, or yeah, I'm here. And as I'm looking at the front door, well, I can just tell you, I know this exact model of door hardware. I know how it operates. I know that it takes less than 5 pounds of pressure to trigger it. I didn't even have any tools on me because it was just a business meeting, but there was a trash can right on the street on that corner. And I looked in the trash, I said, oh, there's like at least 2 or 3 things in this trash can that I could use if I wanted to fashion a tool to spring right into this. We were being escorted upstairs and I'm in the elevator with them. I look at the elevator panel. I go, okay, well, not only do I know which brand of elevator this is at a glance, but there's a little locked panel at the bottom. I know which key that is. It's a key I own. I know the badge systems in this building. I can tell which one is probably their company because I know the badge the person is wearing and I can see the logo on it. I say, okay, so that's all right. You use Indala, which is an old Motorola technology, but I can just glance at all these things. And when we ultimately got to our destination, it was a really nice office. They had a gallery space, as you come in, and they took their meetings with this beautiful art and everything else on the walls. But the first thing I do almost instinctively as we enter this room is I kind of look up over my shoulder. And when I do that, I can tell all the door hardware that's present. I could basically guarantee you I could enter this gallery after hours with no authorization and probably do it without setting off or triggering any alerts or alarms. So this is what I do. When you walk down city streets and you go through office buildings and you just sort of see the world as you're expected to, at least a lot of people do, people who don't work in security. Those of us who are in security, though, it's part of the way we see the world is we wonder, oh, if I wasn't credentialed, if I wasn't authorized, could I get in there or could I, what could I do here? It's sort of like an old buddy of mine used to say when he was a little kid, he'd be out with his parents at like the mall. And he would say, like, I wonder if like a bunch of ninjas wanted to break in here and attack, like, what would they do? So that's kind of how a lot of our brains work. And that's how my brain works. I am, when you get right down to it, a professional thief. I am hired to break into spaces and evaluate security. My firm, the Core Group is my main company. I have another firm that I'm part of for training and consulting as well called Red Team Alliance. But we do physical entry of buildings in order to compromise for everything from the mechanical locks to the access control systems, to the safes, to the alarms. And we do it to let people know how to be better at security. So if I walk around, right, like this is a lock on a storage unit. This is, you might have a lock like this on a locker at work or on a garage. I can tell you from, the old adage, 5 feet away, 5 miles an hour, just kind of walking by. I can tell you everything about this lock. I know the exact model. It's a Master 141D. I can tell you probably 4 or 5 different ways that you could compromise this lock with minimal skill and training. If you are like on a train, here we are, I think this is Caltrain. I was out in California in the before times, and all the tech workers, right? They're all there with, they're going home. They've got their badges still on. And I can not just look at these workers and determine what companies they're from, because, the name is often on the badge or the company logo, but I can tell what technology they're using at the site based on the form factor, the shape of the badge, how thick it is, whether there's a logo on the back of the badge. I can probably also, if I got close enough to these people, grab their credentials electronically. We'll talk about that. I mean, a lot of people are probably nodding along and be like, oh man, I've heard of this kind of stuff before. Absolutely, it's all true. This is a combination lock, right? At a single glance, I can tell you this lock is decodable, and you can do it in seconds without any tools at all. Anytime you see those little ridges down the side of a brass colored lock like that, the little ridges are your indicator that this one is like super vulnerable. And it's a model that supplanted a lock that was also vulnerable to other attacks. So I do this constantly. I look at buildings, I look at their electronics systems, I look at their mechanical systems. I have it in mind when I stay inside of buildings, right? So my hotel rooms, when I'm in a hotel, they tend to look like this on the inside. This little nylon strap with heavy Velcro. It lives in my travel bag, and I'm applying it to doors before I go to sleep. If I want to get a solid 8 hours on the rack and not wonder, is somebody coming in here? You'll see why. So this is my profession. Rest assured, those who are saying, wow, this guy's a professional thief. But again, I said, yes, we don't belong in here, but we're doing this with authorization. Sometimes the job is exciting. It raises the heart rate a little bit. But again, we're always doing this for the service of bettering people's security, for either getting somebody in who needs to get in. We have some government authorized people with us who need to get in a building. We'll do that. Or if we need to just evaluate a target for their own benefit, and they say, we want to know, can anyone else get into our buildings? Can foreign governments get into our buildings? We'll talk about that with them. Now, if you've heard my name before, and I'm out there on that internet a whole lot. If you see me online, you might, oh, Deviant, he's that lockpicker guy, right? And you may have seen animations and diagrams that look like this before. They're mine, that I created them years ago to demonstrate how locks worked. And for a while, groups like a nonprofit, I'm on the board of a nonprofit called Tool. Tool is the open organization of lockpickers. We've been running educational workshops, teaching people lockpicking, because it's first of all, it's just a great hobby. But in the hacker world, in the security world, understanding how a key works or understanding how a lock works without a key is a great analogy to building people's mindset about security. Teach someone how to pick locks, and they can apply that problem-solving process to a lot of types of security hacking. And that's fun, and I still do it. I still enjoy teaching classes. We teach, all kinds of covert methods of entry classes, and lockpicking is part of those classes. But in the field, this isn't what I'm usually doing. Sure, I've got my lockpicks on me, whether I'm on a job or just out around town, but I don't usually need them. Lockpicking is pretty far down the list of things I try to get into a building. And if you've never done this before, I definitely encourage people to learn the idea of, like any kind of hacking, you stress the system and make it behave in a way that the original designer's intent was not predicting. So here we are just one pin at a time, taking these pins out of action until bang, this lock is picked, right? Super easy to do, but there are far easier ways to get into buildings. And criminals know this too. Most attackers who are ever compromising the integrity of a space or of a container or anything, they're not picking locks. Lock picking is a manipulation-based skill. We were during the pre-chat, we were talking about friends of ours, Bill and other folk, Bosnian Bill, lockpicking lawyer. They're all based kind of near one of our offices. We hang out. And if you watch them online, those are people who dedicate years of their life to this craft. And a lot of criminals don't have time to get that good at lockpicking. So what are some things that criminals do and things that my team does to very quickly get into buildings, right? It might seem dumb, but literally knocking hinge pins out, right? If you remove the hinge pins from a door, and then you can just kind of walk that door away from the wall, that's a totally valid method of access. And you don't have to care what lock is on the other side of the door. You're over here attacking the hinge pins. And it might look really big and clunky, right? Like you've got, I don't know if anyone else can control that waiting room or if I'm now the admin admitting people, but I'll try to do multiple duty here. Yeah, like the hinge pins, right? Yeah, that was a big clunky hammer and screwdriver. There are classier ways to go about that though, right? So this is a little hammerless hinge pin tool, a little striker tool, bam, bam, bam. I don't know if I'm sharing my audio here. Let me see if I am. Yeah, share sound, because we're gonna get some good sounds and we'll get some good video optimization going on here. So yeah, the idea of just kind of, let's watch that again, right? So I'm a little, it's a small striker knocker, spring knocker, which is two heavy pieces of steel that are spring connected. So you can thwack, 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 and blast a hinge pin out. And you're not carrying around big bulky tools in the process. Now you might, a lot of you be saying yourselves, all right, look, this is dumb. Doors don't open that way. Like I come home all the time and my door opens, my door opens outward to like, not outward, door opens inward. Like my doors don't, what are you talking about, Deviant? You're nuts. Sure, doors open inward in residential spaces, but this is an office. Look at your offices the next time you're there. Look at commercial buildings. On the inside, you're not seeing hinges. You're seeing them on the outside. And this is because of fire code. Any area that can hold more than 50 people is an area of assembly, it's called. So doors have to open outward. They have to be facilitated with certain styles of hardware. And if you have hinges exposed like this and they're not protected in any way, someone walks up with a little hinge pin knocker, that door is moving right away from the door frame. And I don't care what kind of lock is installed on the left side. Now I said if your hinges aren't protected, right? So there are tools like this. There are devices like this. This is called a security hinge. And you can kind of see what's going on here, right? As the door swings shut, there's a peg, and that stud peg is going to recess into a hole on the other side of the hinge that's actually in the frame. So if that door is shut, yeah, I mean, I might be able to knock the hinge pins out, but I can't reef on that door. I can't get the door away from the frame, no matter what I try to do. My screen is going a little bit crazy here. There we go. I'm still here. Are we all still together? Excellent. Making sure I didn't lose any of you. Cool. You might, however, not have a security hinge, but want one. Let's say you're like, oh man, that seems really cool, but I don't want to go buy new hardware and rehang my doors. It's really a kind of a pain in the butt to balance your doors when you're lifting them up. Well, these little screws exist. These are called jam pin screws. How do they work? Well, you can take a couple of screws out of your existing hinge, 1 or 2 screws out, replace them with jam pins. And you say, well, now the door won't shut. Well, I got a recipe for you. You take these 2 screws out of the door and replace them with nothing. Now you've made a security hinge in place where there wasn't one before. The best solution really in the commercial world, and a lot of you, if you look at your doors when they're open, you'll see this. A lot of industrial style hinges have what are referred to as captive hinge pins. So there's a small set screw on the inside of the hinge, only accessible ostensibly when the hinge is, exposed, when it's open. And the actual pin inside the hinge has a recess. It's turned down slightly in the middle. So when the pin is installed all the way, you crank down on that set screw, and therefore it's not just going to pop right out of there. So if you can guess, by the way, this door, right, it's got a very taupe sort of, wallpaper, very neutral tones. A lot of times when I'm in front of a big audience, I ask them, does anybody want to guess, where this door is? This is in a hotel, right? And we could talk about hotels for a second. Remember hotels? Those places we used to go to when we traveled. I remember them very well. My wife and I are supremely frequent travelers, or were, and it's picking up a lot for us now. I mentioned that when I, go to sleep in a hotel, my door looks a little different. Well, in hotels, if any of you used to be frequent travelers or will be once again, there's a few things to keep in mind. One of the things is door closure. Okay, and here we have the world's worst door closer and door fitment. So this is terrible. Literally full on open. From full on open. Yeah. Fix that. Same thing. So I had to fight and fight and fight just to get the door to shut properly. If you're curious, in your spaces, not just hotels, but any commercial space, this is the accepted industry standard. A door should be able to close itself fully, smoothly, and properly when it is opened to the width of the door, right? The thickness of the door, if that's how far the door is open, it should close naturally if released from the hand. Not a lot of doors can do that, right? So door fitment is a really big issue, and not just for door closers though, right? In a lot of commercial spaces, I exploit door fitment with, well, you're about to see here. There are a number of tools you can use to attack the latches of a door.
So here we have a locked door, and we're just going to traveler hook this.
How's the sound coming through? Is everyone being able to hear this, or do you need me to explain what's going on there? So I don't know, I can't hear you. I can't actually see the chat. I can try to bring the Zoom meeting back up wherever the window has gone. It is hidden somewhere because I am in different screens here. But yeah, there's my chat. Okay. Let me see if anyone's talking. No comments. It's quiet. So it's quiet, but you can hear a little bit. Yes. So okay. All right. So what we were seeing there, cool. You can hear everything. Awesome. What we were seeing there, that's a water pumping station. There's a municipal water supply. A lot of our clients are in the electric, water, oil, and gas kind of industries. So critical infrastructure like that was me standing on the street at the main entrance and just slipping the latch open. I was saying this door fitment is allowing me to compromise the latch. Let's talk a little more about latch attacks, right? So here's another locked door. And I'm using that same tool that you saw before. I'm using this little hook type tool. Let's look from the inside at what's actually going on when I do this. So right there, do you see that? That little tool is called a traveler hook or a shrum tool sometimes. The idea of having a thin tool that you can slip into the door jamb and just push on the latch. This photo you're seeing right here, this is a photo from my old buddy Keith. When I met him, he was a trading locksmith for years. And when I got to meet him for the first time, I knew him online. I said, hey man, I'm just this young lock picker. This is decades ago. I said, it's so cool to meet you in person. A lot of us just pick locks for fun, but you did this. You were a locksmith for years before you got a government job at, working for an agency. I wish I could have seen like the tools you carried around in the field all the time. That would be amazing. And he's like, oh yeah, I still got some of them. And he spreads these out on the table. And I was like, oh, all right, well, it's kind of anticlimactic. I mean, I guess if you're a locksmith, you're servicing things, you're adjusting things. I kind of meant like your entry tools. He's like, no, these are my top 3 entry tools. They use them all the time. I said, are you serious? Like slipping latches, that's a real thing? He's like, oh yeah, constantly. So many doors are not installed correctly. You slip the latch, you get right in. So you might think, oh, well, the problem is the door is installed, doesn't have a big protective plate. So if we had something like this, it would be better. Well, no, having a big protective plate, it doesn't quite do what you might think. I can reach through there with a big heavy piece of piano wire, something like that. The idea of guarding the latch from being reached, that's not what we should be thinking of when we're protecting doors from these kinds of attacks. I have long versions of that hook tool, right? I can reach down way behind protective plates and get that latch moving. The problem is that the latch is not engaging with the door frame hardware properly. Let's talk about latches for a second. So here we have, kind of a piece of latch hardware. In yellow, in this highlighted portion, this is the door latch. This is what will hold the door shut if someone is pressing on the door or leaning on it, right? If the wind blows, the door is not going to pop open. The latch holds the door closed. Now, in many doors, internal doors in a building, sometimes called passage style doors that don't have high security, you might have only that. This part is called the spring latch. But other doors have more than just a spring latch. They have this second mechanism, right? This extra little plunger right here that's sometimes called the guard bolt. So that is shown in red in this right here. That is called the indicator of a dead latch mechanism. What is a dead latch? What is, if you see a door open that looks like this, what's going on there? You might not realize that on a door like this, where it has two elements, it has a latch and a secondary guard bolt plunger. When the door is open, you see both of those elements, and you can like poke at them and press them with your fingers, and yeah, look at me, I'm touching the latch. Yeah, I did that as a little kid, right? When the door is shut, that guard bolt is not sticking out. It's supposed to be held back by the door frame. I know people, when they shut their door, the door will click and they say, hey, you didn't shut it all the way. And they push harder on it because they're trying to get that extra bolt to also click and pop out. That is the exact opposite of what you want. You don't want the door to click like that. You are undermining your security. The problem with many dead latches is door fitment. If the door is not fit correctly, if it is not installed with the right strike plate hardware, the idea of a dead latch, the whole purpose of a dead latch is so that you can't slip it or jam it, or those attacks used to be called lloyding, if you're curious. Celluloid, back in the 20s, we didn't have polymer plastics, right? But we had celluloid. So you could shove celluloid into a door and try to get the latch to spring. Dead latches exist to prevent lloyding. But if the dead latch is not installed correctly, you get situations like this server room you're about to see. So there we go, server room access. And that's literally with a piece of garbage, right? So that was a piece of plastic trash from the waste bin. I just took it like clamshell packaging, and I just kind of took my knife and ripped it up into a square, and then shove, jam, and the server room popped open. Now you might be able to tell why this latch is not fitting correctly with the door frame. Look at that strike plate hardware. Is that the stock original strike plate hardware that, you know, came with this handle set or anything like that? Does anyone want to hazard a guess if this is factory original? I think you're probably all muted and some of you are watching on YouTube, but no, the short answer is no, this is not factory original. This is, what is this? This is an electronic strike, right? You saw the card reader at the beginning. Exactly. People are saying it in chat. The card reader on the very start of that footage was what controlled the server room. So if you have a card reader door, depending on how it's been installed, you might have an electronically controlled strike plate. That's your authentication, you know, hardware. And if you don't have the right fitment for the door latch that you have on your door, you're going to be in bad shape. We run into this all the time.
So proper, you know, sergeant lock, but again, it's bad door fitment.
Is it double door thing, you think?
That's another water treatment facility, right? This is me inside of another water pumping facility for a municipal city supply. And I do not belong in there, right? Like I will hurt myself in there. This is an OSHA violation, probably all kind of a DHS violation and everything else. And around all the chemicals of interest, the chlorine and so forth. So yeah, again, that was me on the street, sidewalk to critical infrastructure with a $5 hook. What happened there? Let's watch this again. Another door problem, right? So that is a crash bar. That is also known as a panic exit device. And how did I access it, right? Well, there's a tiny gap in the door, which most doors have, right? Most doors don't hit with, you know, like an 1/8 of an inch or a 1/16 of an inch gap between them. They have a little bit of buffer so that the door swings freely if the building settles. And we have weather stripping to cover that gap so that you're not having air and wind and snow blow in and out of your building. But weather stripping is not a security product. Weather stripping is soft rubber, or that little brush material, right? So if there's any kind of gap, and on the inside is a panic exit device, a crash bar, an exit paddle, anything like that, I literally was using a bent rod. I was lower the volume on your videos. Well, let's see. I can try to lower the volume on my videos. Let's see if that works. But I'm literally using like bent rods of metal, just hardware from a hardware store. that I could pick up, and I didn't like fly in with it. I just kind of went to a local hardware store, bought some rod stock, and we make tools. We make tools like this. There you go. There you are, right? Instant entry yet again. That's our teammate Rob. This specific style of door hardware, by the way, this is super well known. If you've ever seen, like, we call that the key to Silicon Valley, that bent rod that we had there, because everyone in California, especially in the Bay Area, loves these doors. They look really slick, right? But this style of design, this is called the Rockwood style, if you're curious, a panic exit device. That's their PDU 8000. Again, super light touch, 5 pounds of pressure to activate. It actually activates with way less pressure than that. And if I can reach through and grab those bars, or if I can reach through and hit those crash pads, I can pop these doors open. They have to open for egress. That is the law. Now you might look at this and say to yourself, oh, all right, yeah, but what time of day were you there? And it looks like a little shadowy out there. I'm like, and it is. This is like 2 a.m. that I'm getting through this door that you saw earlier. So yeah, at 2 a.m, everyone's gone. The building's not occupied. What could they have done? A lot of you are seeing this, right? Like there's clearly a deadbolt there. The thumb turn is in the foot. They just didn't have the deadbolt locked. They're like, well, if they'd done that, what would you do? And I would say, well, if they had done that, there's a thumb turn on the inside, right? You can't have a double keyed deadbolt on a commercial building if people occupy the structure, because they might accidentally get entrapped if somebody locks the deadbolt. If there's a thumb turn on the inside, well, this tool exists. What is this tool? It's a thumb turn flipper. Reach through the door from the outside. First responders use this all the time to gain access to entrapped people in commercial spaces. Here's a fire crew using one. There you go. It's called a J tool if you're curious. So thumb turn, sometimes they're way down at the bottom of a door, right? But again, California, man, got that frameless glass door. Reach right on down. The hardest part is getting it to stay centered on the thumb turn when you're operating it. This one takes multiple turns. There we go. Now unlocked. So changing gears for a second, what about padlocks, right? There's so many things in this world are not doors, but they're containers locked up with padlocks, or maybe you've got perimeter gates and fences locked up with padlocks. Every one of these on this slide, super common padlocks, common in all the hardware stores. If you have a padlock in something on your life, there's a good chance it might look like one of these. Every one of them, stupid vulnerable. Tons of easy attacks. I'll blast through some of the padlock stuff. It's not the main focus of a lot of big buildings, right? Let's talk about this first one, and it's an example of what's called a warded padlock. What's going on with warded padlocks?
And what do you attack them with? Well,
you attack them
you
with
use what are called warded picks.
Yes, skeleton keys
also
exist
sort of kind of known as skeleton keys. They're unbelievable in the sense that these are all different locks.
I'm going to turn my volume off and talk through it here, right? So these are all 3 different locks. They all have different keys, but I'm using what are effectively skeleton keys. And I'm going to be able to pop open not just these 3 warded locks, but warded locks that you would buy from all different brands and manufacturers, right? These are all examples of locks that have, this is not the real key, right? This is just a stamped piece of metal. And you can kind of see I have this key ring with about 5 different shapes of stamped metal. But in ye olden times, like skeleton keys, this is where they come from. This is the origin of that attack. Let's talk about what's going on and you'll see why this is feasible, right? A warded lock will have a key that looks roughly like this. And it looks like the key is very complex. Like we got square bits all over the key. And it's definitely doing key things. And the lock looks, robust. It's got all those laminated plates of metal and it's riveted together. Well, what's actually going on? This is what's going on. You have one spring latch mechanism inside the lock. and the rest of the lock is just neutral. It is essentially dead metal. It has a lot of bits and bumps, right? These little protrusions, they are called wards. They're in the keyway. They're off to the side. If this makes sense, the key can slide next to the wards when you insert the key. But when you try to turn the key, it has to be perfectly complementary with the warding for it to turn and engage that latch and actually pull it. So the wrong key, if you have an incorrect key, it'll fit in the lock. It just can't turn because the warding doesn't line up with the bits on the key. But think about this, right? In most locks, the bit cuts all over the key are necessary functions of authentication with the pins. And we saw the pin tumbler lock at the very beginning of the talk, right? Warded locks don't do that. Warded locks don't use all these little bits as mechanisms of authentication. They're just barriers to operation. So if you have a warded key and you shave it all down, leaving only the one part that is necessary to trip or trigger the latch inside the lock, that's still going to work just fine. This is where the term skeleton key literally comes from. You trim away all the extra flesh from inside, from the lock, from the key, and then it will work inside of every lock. You are left with just the bare bones of that key. And we use warded lock tools that are essentially just stamped metal skeleton keys. It's what's old is new again, man. The 18th century is back. How about this, right? This is like one of the most popular locks in America. It is on school locker. I mean, everyone has seen this lock. It literally gets used as an icon in software when you're talking about encryption and things like that. Is this going to be much of a shock to anybody? I mean, a lot of you. I was told there's a lot of students here today. So shimming a lock, if you've not seen this before, come on. So right, padlock shims. If you are not familiar with them, either official proper padlock shims made of steel like you saw there, or if anyone has ever seen me or some of my friends talk about, aluminum can padlock shims. You get yourself a beverage can, you cut it up, shove it in the lock in a certain way. If you've never heard of this, please look on YouTube. There's a lot of people talking about how it works because most of these locks do not have protections against shimming-based attacks like this. I said earlier that I recognized this lock on a storage unit at one point, and I was like, oh man, there's a million ways you can attack this. Some of them could be picking and manipulation. You could shim this lock if you wanted. You could even use a bump key, something we haven't talked about before, but it's vulnerable. But I love this lock as an example of vulnerability and susceptibility to what is known as a comb pick attack. Let's look at comb picking. So yeah, these tools right here, these are called comb picks. Why was that so easy? What the heck just happened inside that lock? Well, let's start out by saying comb picking shouldn't be possible. Comb picking, or overlifting as it is called, is a dumb weakness. If you look at any one of these pin stacks in the lock and you try to push as far as it will go, you could like crush the spring above the pin stack, and it's still, you can't get the pins out of the plug all the way. And that's a very tall pin stack. But even if we did it with the smallest pin stack in the lock, you can't get those pins all the way out of the plug. There's just not enough room in that housing up top. But what if there was enough room? What if the lock was designed like this? And again, you're looking at that and you're like, why would anyone do that? Sometimes this happens. Those comb tools are designed to reach in under the pins and just push everything completely out of the plug. And the plug has no pins in it at that point. It just spins around. So yeah, the biggest offenders in North America are these two couple of locks. You don't see comb picking much with door locks because the housing of a door lock, well, it's a small sleeve. It's a little cylinder that you install in a deadbolt or something. But think of what the housing is on a padlock like this. The housing is the lock body. And if the padlock has to be a certain size, they're trying to make this for a size in the market. Well, you need a 40 millimeter or a 50 millimeter padlock. The housing just gets bigger because you've got more metal. And that often can mean more room above those pin stacks that they didn't anticipate how easily you could come in with this little tool. And again, like there's really long handled versions of comb picks. We make this little covert one that fits on a keychain. It's always on my keys with me. And I've used it. I've used it a lot. I've used it in like escape rooms and stuff where the staff gets mad at you and you didn't solve the puzzle. You didn't find the key. It's like, yeah, well, you didn't use good locks. What do you want from me, buddy? One more padlock for you, right? This is perhaps the most exploited padlock in history. This design, this called the Sesame style design. The original lock was the Sesame by CCL. Master has cloned it. Brinks has cloned it. This design has a huge weakness where you can slide a thin blade of metal in between the wheels. And when you see slipping, you know, a thin probe like this into the multi-wheel section of a padlock, so it's, oh, are you decoding it? And yeah, you can definitely decode multi-wheel locks using a little thin tool. But this one, you don't even have to decode it. If you slide this tool in and then you rock it, you can just spring the whole lock completely open. Just ka-choink. We'll show you a little bit of footage of that.
If I have a tiny bypass blade.
Turn our sound off here. So yeah, a little bypass blade going in there. And if you can find the right spot, this is called the Master 175. If you're curious, there are a number of locks that have been like it, but if you look online, Master 175 vulnerability, you'll find it. So now it looks like we're almost in the right place, and sure enough, we are. Just kind of rock the tool, spring the latch, boom. You're lifting a small plate of metal inside the lock body. And you can kind of see it. I have a cutaway version of this lock. So that Y-shaped piece of metal, normally that metal would rock downward into the wheels in order to release at the top. But instead of, it's like a seesaw. Instead of letting one side go down, if you're on a seesaw that's not anchored properly in the middle, you don't really need to push one side down to lift the other side. You can just lift the other side with your hands if it's not anchored to anything. And that's what we're doing here. So yeah, the Master 175 or Sesame vulnerability. This lock, how many people have seen this lock? You've seen a brass bodied lock with multiple wheels on it, usually on either storage, units or lockers or any kind of job site. Oh my God, so many construction infrastructure jobs. You've got a crew of 20, 30, 40 people, and they all need to get in this job site every day. You're not handing out and collecting keys and all that. You want a combination lock. And this is the go-to one. This is the one that's on store shelves all the time. Here we are, rock, that plate, there we go, kasproing. And I said they've tried to fix this, right? Yeah, the 175 is not as popular anymore as the Master 875. That's the one with the ridges on the side. They fixed this. You can't do this to the 875. The 875 you can decode though with no tools at all, just by pulling on the shackle and rolling the wheels. Now, not everything's mechanical, right? Some attack vectors are electronic. I love talking about this. If you are in a building and you see a sensor above the door, how many people have seen these motion sensors, right? These are called request to exit sensors. They are part of an electronic access control system. And the idea is if a door controller sees motion on the secure side right near the door, it says, oh, that's probably a person exiting. I will definitely not throw any alarms or alerts if the door opens. If the door position switch says the door just opened, the door controller is like, well, yeah, of course the door opened. I mean, someone was exiting. But in instances like this, where the door is actually magnetically locked, the door controller is what's letting the person out. Motion on the inside of the door causes these mag locks to release. And what kind of sensor is this? I said it's a motion sensor, but do you know what technology it uses? It uses infrared. So if you can effect a large change in temperature on the inside of the door, from the outside even, you can cause this motion sensor to alert and unlock the door. So what did this person just do, right? If you're not familiar with this, they caused a cloud of super cold air on the inside of the door. Again, we train fire crews and first responders all the time. They love using tactics like this to get into buildings. It's non-destructive. They don't have to break anything. They don't have to bring out the Halligan bar and the irons. Here's a bunch of footage from firefighters. You see those big clouds of cold air, right? Are you curious how they work? Are you curious what's happening there? What magic super tool they're using? Some of you already must know this. This is talked about online too, right? They're just using canned air. They're using spray duster. The first one is literally just spray duster, like from an office supply store. If you flip it upside down, you are letting because it's not a can of compressed air that would run out very quickly. What they use is a compressed, it's a super cooled liquid, right? It's actually a liquid under pressure that boils off inside the can to create that air pressure, and you're blasting off. Well, if you let the propellant out of the can, it will boil off in the atmosphere and cause this super cold cloud. The can next to it, the can on the right, is not a duster can. It's actually made for testing chips and stuff in the electronics industry. So MG Chemical or Tech Spray, Freeze Spray are brands that make, it's basically just R134A, right? It's tetrafluoroethylene that you would use in a refrigerant system. If you let that boil off, it gets very cold. In the IC world, if you have a component on board that you suspect is causing errors and you want to cool it down to see if the chip is getting too hot, that's what you would use super cold for. The stuff that is inside of the spray duster, that's only difluoroethane. It still works. It's not quite as good, but if you can get the super cold, oh man, you can blow through so many locked doors. Now, let's say you don't have anything at the ready, right? You don't have any kind of canned air, the cool stuff or even the basic stuff, and it's late at night, so all the office supplies and staples are all closed. Well, you might be a guy like me, a jackass who walks out of a bar with his soon-to-be future wife, and you're just carrying your glass of whiskey with you because here you are on the street and you're on a date and you want to impress a little lady you're with. You say, hey, check this out. Look at this bank right here. This bank is locked. This is fun. And your wife, to be one day, she says to you, I don't know what's about to happen, but I know this is going to be good. And she gets her phone out. And I'm very grateful that she did, because what turned into a silly was a prank at the time. This is one of my most popular clips online. If you haven't seen this, this is opening a bank with whiskey.
So we're locked, but there was a rec sensor up there.
So I did not enter the bank at midnight at night in Montana that evening. But yeah, what did I do? Well, I just blew a cloud of whiskey. Like I just kind of just aerosolized a little mouthful of cold, whiskey in a glass and popped the door open. Why? There was a rec sensor on the inside that released. Here I'm outside of a hotel. Now I'm inside of a hotel. This, it had like one of those racks of brochures in the front vestibule, like come see the coal mines or whatever. And what did I do? I folded up one of the brochures and I stuck it under my arm just to warm it up just a little bit. And then I slipped it through the door, waved it around, and the motion sensor hit. There you go. There I'm in. If you're in a building that needs better security, there are better sensors. The one on top, the super common, like that's made by Honeywell, the IS-310, and it's just rebadged and resold by so many people. The one on the bottom is made by GE, and it's a dual technology sensor. It does have passive infrared, but it also uses radar. It uses range-controlled radar, microwave radar. So it has to see not just change in temperature, but some vaguely human-sized object. And the object has to be moving toward the door. A lot harder to fake this one out. If you want real high security, sometimes you'll see what are called push-to-exit buttons, however. So if someone inside needs to egress, no amount of motion or walking up to the door is going to do it. You have to hit usually a green button. Does this always work for security? Well, depends how they install it, right?
All right, server room test number 1, locked. Locked.
So there's a difference, right? There's a difference between sort of installer mindset and security mindset. On paper, that job was done correctly, right? On paper, they needed to have a secure cage in the server room. The fence mesh had to be this. It had to be bolted this way. It had to be installed. Oh, we had a push to exit button. All right, we installed the push to exit button. On paper, everything was right. But they didn't factor that, well, how far could someone reach through that cage with their arm if they're skinny? And sometimes even putting the button further and further away, like we will reach through with really long rods and flick covers open and press buttons. Like, there's a lot that you have to factor in depending on how secure your environment is. My last bit of footage here on exit systems, right? There's not just people that have exit automated systems. There are vehicular exit systems, you know, like the big ground loop sensors. If you pull up to a gate and you're on the inside of a gated facility and you want to leave, many times you don't have to authenticate your way out. Many times you pull up and the gate detects your vehicle and then it opens up and you leave. Well, there's ways to exploit that if you're outside wanting to come in.
Can you blow my whistle, baby, let me know. Girl, I'm gonna show you how to do.
So yeah, the old joke, like you can get in anywhere with a ladder, you just look like you belong there. You also can do that too. You just slide a ladder right under the gate. It'll hit the metal will trigger the sensor, and there you are. So there are a lot of different things that for legal code, it's hard to mitigate for many of these bypasses, right? So think of modern doors. When's the last time you've seen a door knob in a facility? I mean, you haven't, right? Nowadays, for ADA reason and an NFPA reason, for fire code, for accessibility code, they're all lever style door handles. Well, this is massively exploitable in what's known as an under door tool. So that was the use of what's called an under door tool, and it was so fast. And they were trying to film for this special. They were putting documentary footage for. The camera guy was like, oh, I don't even know what just happened there. Can you show that again, like slower, and maybe from the inside? What's going on? Well, I'll show you one from the inside. It could not be simpler. This is a rod that is delivering a string to the inside handle, and then I just yank on the string. So yeah, there's pretty much every hotel door you could imagine under door tool vulnerability. I do this all the time at conferences and such when I'm with friends. Like I was at I guess this next clip is from SHOT Show or something. I was there with a bunch of the guys from Firearm Blog. This is James Reeves's like hotel room, and all the Finnish guys were hilariously, they could not believe I could get in. I said, yeah, I can get in. Let me reach into my backpack, and I grabbed something, and here we go.
So close.
So yeah, most doors are vulnerable to that. Now there's some mitigations, right? You could have sort of interlocking door hardware that has a little edge that comes around and interlocks with the door sill. You can try to tighten up the bottom of the door with various bottom door security solutions. Well, then I might just go through the top. Don't know if anyone knows what this substance is. It have to be kind of old. This is film, right? This is camera film. Swing it right over. And pull. So a lot of credit goes to a fellow named InfoSec Pope from Utah. He showed us that technique online, and he actually gave me a giant reel of film, like movie theater film. So for a while we were selling that to anyone who asked. I think I finally restocked it on Red Team Tools because it's actually hard to get film nowadays, right? But it works. Just sending a piece of film over the door, grabbing the handle. One of my favorite mitigations in the face of this, by the way, is this simple device. This is not a security product, right? This is a door shroud. It goes around the door handle, and it's for maintenance areas so that rolling carts and such don't crash into door handles and get hung up as they go through doors. You can find this in like the Grainger catalog and the Incom catalog. But put this around the door definitely makes it hard to use an under door tool or an over door attack, right? If you've ever been in a hotel or any building where the door handles seem to be mounted in weird orientations, I don't know if this is legal to code everywhere, but it's absolutely going to frustrate the under door attack. This is specifically done to prevent those kind of attacks. One of my favorite ones I ever saw was this. Somebody sent me photos, and we called this the albino alligator, the albino cyclops alligator protecting your door handle. It's not a security product though. We asked building managers, like, what is this little thing that I see? And they're like, well, the sliding closet doors you have in the hotel room. I mean, it looks kind of like the track, for those. Yeah, it is. It's just sliding door track mounts little guides that you can attach to your door. Going down the Home Depot aisle, finding stuff for $3 or $4. I have done this. I've done this in buildings. This doesn't look too bad, frankly. This is a little closet rod holder, but it absolutely makes it a lot harder to get an under door tool to fish around that handle. Now, if you're on the road and you don't have any of these devices and you don't want to screw something into the door, obviously, what's the old Douglas Adams Hitchhiker's Guide phrase? Always know where your towel is. So if you've got that going on, you roll up and wedge a towel behind the door. It's a lot harder to come in and hit the door with an under door tool like that. So free one for you. A couple more things to talk about, right? Your keys. How secure are your keys themselves, right? Security kind of maintenance carts that are on a lot of big corporate campuses. Here's an example of one. I was walking by a visitor center as I pulled in, and I was just like, good Christ, that's a lot of keys. That's just all the keys to everything, just hanging out, just sitting there. I could have just taken the carabiner and walked away with it. Now, they might have noticed the keys shouldn't just walk away. Hey, somebody stole our keys. Well, what if I want to come up with a way of stealing these keys that isn't so obvious, right? Let's talk about less obvious ways of stealing keys. Well, you could try to find unattended keys that people don't go for very frequently. Here's a building. We look around the side. People always love to think that those rocks are like fake rocks. Like, oh, is one of those hidden keys? No, it's not that. If you look closely enough by the piping and so forth, by like the gas line and everything. Well, what's this? We got a little key box, right? What's going on? Have you ever seen these kind of key boxes on buildings before? Of course you have. They are crazy popular. But I said multi-wheel locks, super decodable, right? Get in there with a little thin shim, run the wheel. I have video about this. I have video about decoding multi-wheel locks. So many key boxes are multi-wheel locks. And on corporate environments, if they have technicians who have to show up on an irregular basis, you got the elevator guy, you got the Verizon guy or the gas company, they will all tend to put their own key box on the building and put a copy of the building's key in that key box, and then whoever they dispatch, that person can get in. I've seen like WAG, it's like Uber for dog walking and pet care. This is literally on just a residential, it's bright green. You can be driving down the road and look at a house and be like, wow, I guess they use WAG. And it's a multi-wheel key box. That's the key to your house on the front door of your own house inside of the worst lock imaginable. It's a wild world out there, man. What if I want to steal your keys without even touching them? Also possible. We were talking about this in the pre-call chat, right? If there's a key and it's within visual range of you and you snap a photo, even like a little cell phone potato photo like this, well, in Photoshop or in GIMP or some editing tool, you can straighten that image out. And I have these, all my students in my classes get these grid lines, these sets of grid lines that go for each different brand of lock and key. So if I check this key, it was a Schlage key. Here's my Schlage grid lines. What's this first cut? Well, it's not a 0. It's not a 1. Let's keep looking our way down. I don't know. Looks like a 5 to me. And the second one, looks like a 2. Schlage goes all the way down to 9 if you're curious. So what's the next one? A couple up from 9. What is it? 7. Let's just do the whole key, right? It looks like a 6, another 7. What's that last one? Blue. It's an even number, right? Well, that's another 2. There's your key right there. I can remake this key at a locksmith or with hand tools that I have, and I can do it without ever having touched the key. The key was just near me and I snapped a quick photo. I think about this kind of thing when I'm in like car service vehicles, when I'm in Lyft or Uber. There's people's just, these are your keys. This is your key in front of strangers. And this photo, this is enough of a photo for me to recreate these keys. This was a photo standing next to a guard. We pretend, I'm here to visit so-and-so, and they're trying to call the person, and I'm just snap down at my hip. We got the guard's key, right? You can do this on video. So this is a footage from some courthouse. I think there was like a protest. No, it was an FBI building. and people were protesting about something, and some worker came out and said, hey, I'm sorry, you can't film here. Can you please back it up onto the sidewalk? We respect the First Amendment, but we need you to be off the property. And this footage is on YouTube. You can see this guy, and he gives out a business card. But what's he got in his pocket? He's got a Yale key. I can see that key right here. I can decode that key from this footage on YouTube. So keep your keys covered up. It's especially bad in situations where there's numbers stamped on the bow of your key. I don't even have to break out my guides if I don't want to on these keys. Look at this. You can see 86555, look, 228333. Like, that's the direct bidding code stamped on these key blades. That happens a ton. Like a lot. I put out the call to various people in a Slack I was part of. I said, I want to put some photos in the talk. Does anyone have any direct bidding codes in their keys? And boy, did people deliver. A lot of, I guess people are probably looking at their keys right now as we're talking about this. I would not be surprised if you're like, oh shoot, that is my direct bidding code. Yeah, cover that up, man. If you want a good solution for that, by the way, there's different sort of key holders and key accessories. The one that I really like is this one right here. It's a little utility blade thing. It's like a bottle opener and a screwdriver and a wire stripper, but it slips over your key. The way I install it on my key is like, if the key is like this, if it's hanging there, it's kind of covering up the bitting of my key so you can't see it. So yeah, don't let people just find and see your keys. They can copy that stuff. You might say to yourself, well, look, mechanical keys are pretty passé. We are a modern building. We use electronic access control systems. Okay, great. Electronic access controls. Let's talk about electronic access controls. Some examples here, right? This is called a telephony intercom box, right? This is a very common sight on big structures, shared access, multiple office buildings, right? This one's made by Linear, big name in the industry. Linear has this cabinet on the outside. It's got a telephone directory and an intercom. It also has a little lock on the front of the cabinet. How many of you know that the Linear boxes all use the same key? It's the 222343 key. You can order it in catalogs, right? Sometimes incorrectly named the A126 key. That used to be a very old key that was used. What can you do if you pop the box open? Well, you do this. Got ourselves a gated community here. And I say, well, this gated community, this gated facility, let me go ahead and reach in there. There's just momentary buttons that I can trigger the locks to unlock. There we go. Didn't have to call anybody, didn't have to authenticate myself, just go right on through. Why not? And again, this is not a restricted key. This is just $5 key in an industry catalog. Here's another huge player in the industry, Dorking systems. And people, I've often talked about this online with people, right? Anytime you see a box with that big AZ call, those 3 huge buttons, right? I just happen to have a Dorking system sitting next to me. Why not? So yeah, Dorking systems, AZ call, big ass buttons. Does it surprise anyone that Dorking all uses the same key? And if you have that key, the 16120 key, if you're curious, Dorking box, you open it up. What do we got inside of here? Well, we got the full circuit board. You've got access to all this. This is the door controller. It's not like a door controller on an enterprise access control system where it's somewhere inside the building. No, you're looking at all the door controls right there. That one I kind of had to hot wire it with a little jumper of wire. Some systems, again, you can just sometimes just flick and press buttons. This was an actual, you're about to see footage of an actual break-in and burglary that took place in Portland. This guy walks up, says, Dorking, reaches inside the box, presses a button, and building access. Management could not believe it when we explained this to them. They literally, when the one person, they said, how has Dorking not been sued? Well, because who talks about this, right? It's this industry key. It's out there. It's available. Finally, Door King did address this, by the way. They said, look, we are no longer using the 16120 key as our standard key. We are now using these two other keys, and they named them and showed them. So, of course, a bunch of locksmiths who sell keys to each other said, by the way, we now sell these keys if anyone needs the new Door King key. Again, key-to-like systems, they are just beneath the surface of what we think of as security. So my favorite, absolute favorite story about key-to-like systems is the CH751. If you're not familiar with this key, it is like America's everything key. You saw this story a while back about, oh, thieves are, stealing, credit card information, putting skimmers in gas pumps. They have this special gas pump key. Well, it's not the gas pump key. Look at the bidding, up, down, up, down, up. That's the CH751. It is America's most popular key. It is, if you just go into Doors and Hardware and search for key, it's the top result on Amazon. Anytime you see like a little rinky-dink cabinet type enclosure and it has a little wafer lock in it, there's a good chance that's a CH751. People send me footage like this all the time from the field. This is a wiring closet. This is the fire annunciator panel. This is the Brevo badge system. Different brands, both CH751. Honeywell badge system, CH751. Alarm panel, CH751. Medical drug storage inside of an ambulance, right? An EMT.
Secure cabinet, CH751.
I think perhaps my favorite CH751 footage is this right here, this key lockbox, right? All the keys in the building, what are they secured with? A terrible little CH751. You know why I really love this photo though? Because inside the lockbox, there are no less than 3 more CH751s that are doing other stuff in this building. And it blows me away, right? All right, a couple more things to talk about. And then we got some stories. I don't know how we're doing on time or how long you wanted to keep me here, but I got plenty to share. So yeah, like electronic credentials. I'll keep going. Someone says, great, I'm gonna keep going as long as you want me here. So electronic credentials, right? How many, there must be people who use electronic badges. I know some of you at your workplace, some of you, if you have a gym membership, maybe some of you are students, a lot of dorms and things like their electronic credentials. So they come in all kind of form factors, right? There are cards, there's fobs, there's little sticker dots you can put on things. You may have used a lot of different readers over the years. You may have seen one that looks like the one in the previous slide, or maybe you may have seen readers that look like this one. My reader is different. My reader looks like this. That is my RFID credential reader. That is a technology called the Proxmark tool, specifically the Proxmark 3. And it is a hacking tool, right? You can read data out of credentials. Sometimes that's very trivial. Some credentials do not have a lot of security built in. Other credentials have much more hard and secure. They have secure objects. They have protected memory space. And cracking this is me cracking a hotel key and getting the actual payload data out of the key so that I could clone it and get into a hotel room without the real key. So we do this kind of stuff all the time. A lot of hotels use electronic locks in a number of ways. We can jump back to hotels again for a second with let's talk about electronic safes.
So we got our in-room safe.
Right? Here's a hotel safe.
Secured to a,
looks all,
very strong
anchored
surface.
down to a crappy shelf. But let's talk about this safe. Some of you, there was a channel, a friend of mine named Brian and Jason. They have a channel called The Modern Rogue. My teammates and I, we've been on that Modern Rogue before. We talked about this on their channel. You may have seen this, right? You've got a locked up safe, but many hotel safes have a little sort of branding badge on the front of them. And if you look underneath that badge, you'll find the override key. You'll find the mechanical override key. And a lot of times it's a super cheap lock. In this case, this is a cross lock mechanism. So I'm using a little cross key. I just reach in there, scrub, 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 and sure enough, that's open. So if you look online, you can find cross lock pick tools, cross tools. They're super janky, right? So here's a little cross key set. This is an actual cross pick, $7, $8. These are not expensive tools. And almost every hotel safe tends to be vulnerable to things like this. So we're locking this one up. There's that little badge, right? Cross pick goes in. And open.
Wow, Jesus, that's worthless. That is absolutely worthless.
So the next time you're in a hospitality environment, look for those little badges on the front of your safe. They often conceal something. That's not the only way in. Of course, these are electronic locks. I'm more of the mechanical safe cracker on the team. I'm a safe technician and so forth. But we have our electronics guys, right? So if you're not familiar with what a logic analyzer is, this is a ISSA-LA logic analyzer. We've hooked, logic analyzers up to safes before, right? So if you look at this circuit board here, in addition to the main, EEPROM, there's external memory over here. We're like, oh, well, that sounds interesting. Let's hook up a bunch of probes to that external memory and start trying to use the safe, putting in code, saving code, opening it, locking it, unlocking it. And we're looking at this output and, we're watching the data come through and Bobek's like, what are these other digits that it keeps trying to read out of memory? That's not our pin. Let's try that pin. And sure enough, it was the master pin. So we had,
Here we are in the hotel room with this.
We'll just say this was a very, very large resort property in Florida. They got a lot of rooms. And we were there for a conference. We were there with other friends. We had called a friend of ours. We said, hey, Jen, you want to try something? Try your in-room safe, lock it up, and don't use that code to unlock it. Try to use this other code. And we, signaled her a 6-digit code. And she's like, okay, my safe is locked up. And she says, well, instead of using 1111, Jen's going to try a different bit of numbers here. So she looks down and very politely, covertly, covered up. So you don't all get to know the 6 digits that open every safe in the Magic Kingdom. They don't anymore, actually. They have since been changed. We've got some contacts there at the Rat. And yeah, sure enough, she punches the number, and that is not her code. That is the master code. It was the master code for the entire grounds. So a number of safes, you see videos like this online. Sometimes they don't set the master code correctly. So, okay, this is closed. So let's see what it wants to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you ever try entering other numbers, and if you try to, and most safe codes are 4 digits, right? If it accepts more than 4 digits, it probably accepts 6, and it's probably a master code. Try 6 digits. And in this case, what 6 digits worked? Zeros. They never programmed the master code in. And if zeros don't work, try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Try dumb stuff like that. And a lot of times you'll trip over the master code that a facility is using for all of their rooms. So what do I do in hotels? I mean, I just lock hard-sided luggage up, right? I have hard-sided Pelican cases. I have nice, padlocks on them, padlocks that are not among the style you saw earlier, right? And in my room, I also throw a few hidden cameras around. So whenever we're on the road, especially in sort of a little bit dodgier environments, hidden cameras that look like cell phone chargers there's a lot of things you can get hidden cameras these days in. And this is something to think about, being able to get alerts on your phone. Why is someone in my room? There are a number of people who have gotten very good at breaking into hotel rooms, at breaking into private spaces. Now, there's articles about this. There's articles that literally talk about the use of the underdoor tool. They talk about the use of stealing a hotel key or cloning a hotel key. So when I'm on the road, my final tip to you before we get to story time here, right? The traveler's doorstop and that security strap that you saw me use. The traveler's doorstop is a little beefy, but if you don't mind carrying a small block of metal, you shove this under the door, kind of crank down on this little screw, it goes right into the carpet, and then that door is not opening at all. Right? No one is getting in this room, even if they try to use the underdoor tool or if they have a key or who knows what they can do. That's a bit much. Most people don't want to carry around a big chunk of metal, and especially if you travel light. So you say, well, I mean, I'll remember to use the deadbolt strap on my door. Okay. Well, I hope you're using a strap, not just the deadbolt. Because remember, for fire egress, even if you flip that deadbolt thumb turn, if anything hits that inside handle, whether that's you or whether that's someone coming around with an underdoor tool, that deadbolt that you're putting your faith in is going to just retract instantly. That is why I really like that little strap. So it's, again, super lightweight. I'm not shilling for any of these companies. I don't make this stuff. The company that makes it is a little retired couple. I like them. They got in touch with me when they heard me talking about their tools. And they said, that's so kind of you. My wife invented it and she loves that people like this now. So they sent me a few of them. They're on Red Team tools if you want one. I threw them on our website. But yeah, any hotel you're in, there's almost always some configuration that you can use to get this strap around your handle and jam the thumb turn so it will not unset. This is me, yeah, again, just so many different rooms and doors. But if you have to get out quickly, you can. So it's locked. There we go.
Can always go 2 for 1.
And you see, I was also using that, what's called a night lock, you know, the night lock that most hotels have something like that. You putting your faith in those all the time? Well, these tools exist, right? Hotels need to be able to get in if they want to get in. If someone on maintenance staff wants to get in your room, they can slip this through the door, whack, and just pop it right open. Here's footage of that. Boink. So that's why I do what I do in hotels, right? Remember, we're not getting super deep into electronic credentials, but if you are curious, there are ways to steal and grab credentials, even remotely. So this is what's called a long range reader. It's like a parking garage style electronic card reader. What do we do to these? Well, we weaponize them. We put battery packs inside them. We put different circuitry inside of them, and we leverage the read distance, the very long 12 to 18-inch read distance of these readers. Put one of these in a backpack, get kind of near someone. There you go. So Dennis just looks like he's checking his phone.
Yeah.
But he's not. What was actually happening is Dennis was monitoring his phone, which was getting a beep whenever we got near a badge. So that's a good badge grab. So when you think about wearing your badges out in public, if someone's standing right next to you on a very close transit train, or sits next to you at a restaurant, or get you when you're most vulnerable. We have definitely done a badge grab like this in the lobby of a building. The bathrooms were public in the building. We couldn't get behind the security desk, but the bathrooms were public. We thought, can I use the head? Went in there. Within 15 minutes, I had a badge grab. So what's the mitigation? There are secure shielding holders, right? I have videos about this where I talk about and test them and show how they work. But there are ways to protect your credentials from badge grabs like that. So keep all of these kind of things in mind, right? RFID credential systems, attacking the readers. Again, I want to leave time for some stories. So let me know if we're running long at any point. Taking a reader off the wall and installing a sniffer behind the reader. This is not Hollywood craziness, right? This is a little circuit board the size of a postage stamp. It's called an ESP key because it uses the ESP Wi-Fi chip, right? And it's this, once you install this, you put the reader back on the wall. You don't disable the reader. You're just grabbing credentials. Anytime someone presents a credential to this reader now, we've sniffed it. And we can replay it later. We can dump those credentials and make our own badges. This is what my team and I do to get into buildings. And it's possible to get even crazier with RFID, right? Like for those of you who don't know, there's all different form factors of RFID tokens. This image is not fully to scale, right? We have the PVC cards, we have key fobs. The little stickers are actually usually even much smaller. We can fix that there. Those are little sticker dots. What's on the far right, though? It's also not to scale. Let's fix that. Now they're to scale. If anyone is not aware of what these are, some of you may know, right? These are injectables. These are implantable RFID badges. And that is something that, frankly, my wife and I both have. In between the first and second metacarpal of both of our hands, we have injected chips. And they are not static, unchangeable circuit, right? Like we can reprogram these chips. So we have, if you don't believe me, come find me at a HackerCon. You can kind of see them or feel them, or you can watch video.
Try to move your
hand
right in front of that. No, it doesn't do anything? What if I try to move my hand on it? Ready? Let me try. I don't know. Try. Maybe you weren't doing it right. Try your hand again. No? Let me try.
And that just seems, funny, but I actually use this on jobs, right? There are times when I will use this to evaluate what badge technology a site is running, because if it beeps on my hand, I know what, are they using MyFair? They're using HID, cool, click. You can program for just access to facilities. This is my wife rewriting her work badge to one of her hands. She can get in that building. Not gonna lie, most of the time, what I do with my hands, it just tends to be, I copy my hotel key to my hand a lot of the time. So there you go. No matter how hard partying your evening is, you can never lose your hotel key. But yeah, I have literally exploited the fact that I could have a key on me and not be detectable, right? I've been in a secure space and I had a guard badge, but the badge was written to my hand. So when they found me in this room, they said, you shouldn't be in here. You have a visitor badge. I did. I had a visitor badge kind of on a lanyard. And they said, no, how did you get in? I was like, oh, I used my badge. I'm not supposed to be in here. And they said, no, you didn't. That badge can't get in this room. And I kept insisting, no, my badge works. So they actually looked at footage and they saw footage of me walk up with a badge and go beep. And they just like, what? They're like, we're watching a visitor badge on camera open this data center. How is they couldn't figure out what was wrong. They let me go and they had to troubleshoot their system. And I said, no, I'll get out of the way. I'll get out of your hair. I'm sorry, man. Didn't mean, this isn't shop class. Right. So I got loads of stories like that. I can definitely share some. Let me see how we're going to cue this up here. So if I have, what's going on with my PowerPoint for a second? Give me a second here. We're going to see. Yeah, I think we can do it like this. Yeah, there we go. So this is the audience participation part of this talk. This is where we kind of choose your own adventure. We don't have time for all the stories, but I don't know if Richard or anyone else can tell me, do we have time for, a 2 or maybe even 3, depending on how we're going? But we need to ask the audience. We need people in the chat, or we need anyone who's watching comments on Slido or whatever system you're using. We've got stories that I call the problem solver. We've got a radio story called Say Again. People know I do a lot of elevator stuff. So there's the elevator repair story. There's a story with armed guards. There was, being cable technicians. There was a pretty hilarious story about, quote, servicing the doors, and a fun one called Detailed Dossier. So I don't know, cast your votes now with your internet fingers. And, it's like American Idol, text this number and get charged $59.99 or whatever the heck your call plan. Yeah. What are we doing here? I don't know if it's only Richard in the chat or anyone else with me, but talk to me. What stories are we doing first? Somebody unmute and tell me what people are saying. Anybody there still? So we got one person, Josh is saying elevator story. We can add the elevators in this. That's been the first requests. Okay, cool. You had me paranoid. I was like, man, what if the stream died and I didn't know? I've been talking to no one for 45 minutes right now. All right, we'll come back to this choose your own adventure screen, but we'll start with the elevator story. We can get there. So the elevator repair story, right? So in general, if you have a bunch of outfits that are sort of just generic repair technician outfits, this helps a lot on various engagements if you're trying to break into places. And this was a subcontracted job. This is very common for us. The core group, we do have like network people. We have a bunch of different subject matter experts, but a lot of times teams that do mostly network pen tests, they don't have a physical team. They'll call us and we will get their team or a member of their team into a building to either attack the network directly or to drop a remote box, onto the network, that's what this job was. So we wanted to get into a building to drop this little box on the network. And I was there, I was escorting someone from another company. Like a repair person there. So we got in the building. this is a little sky bridge connector between two offices. And I got in one office, connected across, rec sensor. Now we're in the building. But you got to have a reason to be there, right? So elevator guy, I'm the elevator technician. I'm here to check out your elevators. I'm making sure that emergency phones are working, you know, pretending to do an e-phone test. A metal clipboard, look like, you know, you have your high vis kind of shoved in the back pocket of your whatever tool belt you're wearing. And in my big metal clipboard, I have all of my attack tools and other things in there, right? But we're in this building and I'm pretending to check the elevator, inspecting this elevator, and let's go down to the next passenger elevator out there around the hall. We'll make sure I heard that it was not leveling correctly. We'll go between floors a little bit. But one teammate, that a guy was with me, he had to go back to the hotel. He was like, oh man, I didn't bring the freaking Dropbox device. I was trying to update it last night and I fell asleep. I got to go get to it's back at the hotel. I got to go grab it. I said, yeah, go ahead. I'll wait here for you. He's like, what? You're going to stay in the building? I said, yeah, I mean, why break in twice? We know I can get in, but now I'm here. I'll just hang out in the building. I'll stay here. You go to the hotel and I'll let you back in when you get back. He's like, well, what are you going to do? So I'm going to hide in the elevator, right? I get in the elevator and I just put the elevator, we talk about this in my elevator hacking talk. I put the elevator in what's called independent service mode. So I took the elevator out of dispatch operation and the elevator just sat there with its door shut and I could just hide in there and no one would know I was there. The elevator wasn't going anywhere. I'm just literally catching up on Twitter and waiting for the guy to get back. Now, it took a while. Half an hour goes by, an hour goes by. I'm signaling him. I'm like, hey, everything okay at the hotel? Did you stop somewhere else? Are you okay, man? He's like, no, it's not going well. He's trying with his in-room TV and an HDMI cable. He's trying to edit the scripts that he's loaded on this little phone box, drop box thing. But his USB keyboard didn't work. So he was using on-screen keyboard, trying to like work with this little headless computer. And I'm like, oh God, that sounds terrible. Well, have fun with that. I'm going to keep reading Twitter in this elevator. So almost 2 hours has gone by at this point. Now I nearly had a heart attack because it sounded like someone was banging on the doors of the elevator. Like, oh God, is somebody trying to get in? Do they know I'm in here? Maybe they're, am I on camera? And I'm like, no, settle down. It's like, it's just after 5. Someone's got to be here from the cleaning crew. They must be like wiping fingerprints off the hoistway doors or something. I don't know. It was not the cleaners. It was a guard, but he wasn't looking for me. What happened is I had been in there so long that people actually were complaining that this one side of the building, the elevator wasn't working. So when my buddy finally gets back from the hotel, he's like, all right, I'm pulling up. Come let me in. So, okay, elevator back to automatic. I step out of the elevator, go to the vestibule on this side, and I was like, just looking over my shoulders, the doors are closing. They had literally taped a sign that said, elevator's not working, use the elevators on the north side of the building, you know, we'll fix this later. So this was great. I let my buddy in, and now it's after 5. So we're the only ones in the building, which is weird, right? Walking around a little bit, looking for a conference room or someplace where we could unplug a conference center machine and plug the phone plug in. But as we're in this hall, sure enough, a guard is coming the other way, just kind of on a daily guard tour, you know, walking by. And we would have looked kind of out of place, like, why are you in this building? It's after 5, everyone's gone. But he looked at me, he looked at my buddy, and I had that general workman outfit on. And you saw I had that badge that said Otis. First words out of his mouth, I'm like, wow, you guys got here fast. You here to fix that elevator? Do you need me to show you where it is? And I was like, oh yeah, I heard you had a passenger elevator that was experiencing a stoppage. Hopefully nobody was entrapped, right? He's like, no, but people were calling my desk all day. It was annoying. Here, let me. So fortunately, I'm the elevator guy now. So I'm doing things with keys and I look like I belong there. I'm pretending to flip switches. The guard doesn't know. I'm like, all right, let's put it on independent reset. Let's try that again. Now the guard's with us. I'm like, let's try to go up a few floors. Let's make sure the doors open and close. Am I taking you away from anything important? He's like, no, man, I want to make sure this elevator's freaking not going to do that tomorrow. This was a pain in my butt. I'm like, all right, well, we go up a few more floors. I'm like, no, I think we're doing pretty good, man, actually. If you want, we can check the elevator controller and dispatcher. We can try to see if there's error log data. It should have it. If we can figure out why the elevator stopped working, we can get you some answers. Do you have a room in this building with like a lot of computers in it or anything like that? Like it would probably, I don't know if you walk around to all the doors, a room that has a lot of fans blowing in it. That's where all the computers probably are. he's like, oh yeah, there's a room like that on this top floor. I'm like, oh, can we go there? Like, help me. Do you have access to this room? So sure enough, the guard is like, oh yeah, here, hang on, get it. What do you need to find? I was like, oh, well, your elevator, and this is your elevator controller is not in the server room. You know this, right? I'm like, well, the elevator controller is usually a bright green box. Look for a computer that's bright green. And we're walking up and down the aisles. And he's like, I don't see any green ones yet. I'm like, oh, keep looking. And my buddy is, he's plugging in flash drives. He's plugging in the phone plug. So finally, we're like, no, I guess maybe, I don't know, you might have cloud elevator support or something. I can open a ticket. Don't worry about it. We're not going to keep taking your time. We're just going to walk around, check the other elevators a little bit, then we'll be out of your way. All right. So thanks for your help. What's your name? All right. Are you on? How long are you on? Till 8? Do you on the third, second shift? All right. If we have any trouble with anyone else, we'll just have them radio you. You met us. Thanks, Chief. Take it easy. So yeah, we got to walk around this whole office plaza, and the guard, like, well, those guys belong here. They're fixing the elevators. So that was marvelous, right? That was like the best possible outcome, because not only did I hide in the elevator and let my buddy back in, but we inadvertently caused a situation where the guards were like, oh yeah, thank goodness you're here. We're so glad. What can we do to make your job better, right? Because everyone wants the elevators to keep working. How are we doing? We got time for another story? How are we on time? You tell me. I can give you another one. One more, says Richard. All right, all right, someone says story 7. We can do that. Story 7, detailed dossier. So this was an interesting job, right? This was a client that had a very sensitive, very kind of secure building. These are all not the real photos, just so you know, but it was a government type facility. I won't be too specific. It wasn't very approachable. There was really only one street, sort of main street access, and it was set back a little bit. It had a parking lot, but unknown parties weren't allowed to just sort of idle around. You need to have a parking badge to be in the parking lot. They didn't like people just being around their building. And because they had a lot of high value individuals, think executives, judges, celebrities, DAs, people, that style of person, right? We were not cleared to enter the building. The job they had for us, it was a unique job. They said, we just want to know how much information you can get from outside the building. And we're like, so do you mean like you want us to just touch like the RFID exterior? Like, what do you mean? Like, no, you're not, don't compromise any of the security. We just want you to know if you can build a profile. Like, what would you as an attacker do if you wanted to compromise our principal individuals or our security? What could you recon against us? Because we'd like to try to figure out what we're vulnerable against, and then we'll do an after action with our guards and say how you did it and what they should be on the lookout for, And we said, okay, yeah, we put this together for you. So a month later, we come back, we lay down this report. And we said, all right, well, we were here for about 3 or 4 days in town sometime in the past month. Did you have any of your shifts report anything suspicious, anomalous? We did a pretty good job, we think. Like they said, no, we didn't catch it. We didn't have any reports other than there was like a traffic accident by 2 cars. That wasn't you guys, was it? We're like, no, that's a good distraction though. That's a reason you're like, I can't move my car waiting for the police to show insurance. I should have thought of that, but no, we didn't cause any damage. Could you imagine renting like 2 cars and pretending to get in a traffic accident and then being told, no, I won't move? Like I like that one. But I said, no, that wasn't us. No. So it sounds like no real disturbances. But anyway, if you want to leaf through that, have a look. And they looked, and we had a list of all their principal individuals, all their prime targets, when they tended to arrive, when they tended to depart, the most likely associates with each other, like who probably worked together and came and went at the same time. We had plate numbers of all the vehicles that picked them up, because they were actually using a car service. And we're like, so you must use so-and-so car service. We pulled these 12 license plates, kept showing up. We pulled the registration records. They all go to this one firm. That's probably who you use, right? And they're like, oh my, how did you know all this? We're like, well, this person probably works on this office and they work next to this person, and this driver picked them up on Thursday. Like, how did you got all this information without entering our building? I said, yeah. I mean, we do reconnaissance for a living. Even the jobs where we break in, that's not the first thing we do. We do recon. We teach long-range surveillance and reconnaissance. We really get crazy with cameras and glass, right? So Drew is one of our guys on the team. He's our main camera guy, right? Drew runs our surveillance course. So giving students a chance to go hands-on with really psycho expensive optics, the camera manufacturers love it, frankly. Like we put these are, multi-$1,000, 10, 15, 20, $30,000 lens kits. We put these in the hands of a lot of our clients who come for training, and oh, how do you afford all these lenses? We're like, well, Canon and Sony send them to us. And then we send them back. Like, how? Why? Well, because you probably want to buy one now, and you're going to tell your agency to budget for that, and Canon likes that. So yeah, if you come to our surveillance class, I'm not trying to sell you anything here, but like we don't charge you for the lenses, like they're just part of the class, because this is how government teams learn just how far you can push gear to really max out what you can see. This is our rooftop in one of our training facilities, right? We're just checking out vehicles from a distance. We do a thing with a telescope. So Drew bought a telescope at one point, and he has a mount adapter for one of his cameras, right? His mirrorless camera. And this is a gas station that's probably, I guess it's almost a half mile away. So you can see it's very hard to see out there, right? But this is a gas station way down the road, and we can watch vehicles come and go. So this is from our roof. And if you can almost see kind of the red and green light, there's that rotating airport beacon. It's just so if we back up and then go over to our telescope here, we do recon. Like this is how you film vehicles coming and going. Like Drew does a lot of work down on the southern border, monitoring like cartels. So just monitoring when people are coming and going, training the government how to. This is how you put eyes on a mountain pass. This is how you put eyes on a gas station where people are dropping packages off. So if you want to come hang out on a roof with us, learn to do fun stuff, we're happy to teach you. But that's what we did. So again, this facility was not near any buildings, but we were able to get an Airbnb a couple blocks away. We got it on a high floor, and we were able to just set up cameras and just start putting eyes on target and getting an idea for their patterns, getting an idea for where their guards worked on the grounds. We noticed the guards would occasionally walk the footpath around the grassy grounds, but we never saw anybody going back into that forested area. This sort of was all just kind of like, I don't know if it was state land or something, or if this was part of their private property, but no one really went back far into this zone, right? So we did a bunch of open field surveillance. We do this in the surveillance class, right? So doing a stealth approach through overgrown brush and woods. You put people in camo. I mean, camo works really well. If anybody's a hunter, my wife and I go with a bunch of people for hunting all the time. Like, we got camo. Drew and Rob Rob went to sniper school. Like, Rob has really good camo, right? Camo works amazingly well. So here's Drew. He had crawled with Rob all the way up to their property line, and there was a little kind of drainage ditch that they got into. And he could pop his head over this drainage ditch, and he blurs right in. Like, he blends really well. And just with a hunting jacket, right? Camo is great. How many people are in this photograph right here with these hikers? Think about it. Look at it. And if you think you have a number, ask yourself, how many whiskey bottles are in this photograph? Is that lining up with how many people you think are in this photograph? No, there's another guy right here. He's the fourth person, and he is feet away from you. Camo works, man. This is one of our, this is Drew in the field, and Rob is taking a photo of Drew from maybe 5 feet away. Rob gets even, this is 3 feet away. This is right in the underbrush, like sniper at your feet. The only thing Drew is visible at right here is his hands. He didn't wear his gloves that day. But the only thing you can see are hands. If you can't see Drew, by the way, here is Drew. Here is his camera. Here is Drew and his camera. And if you think that's hard to spot, don't feel bad. It was really hard for them to spot us too. So I love this photo that we got, right? So they asked us, how close did you manage to get? And we're like, well, in the field, we managed to get maybe within 50 feet of one of your vehicle checkpoints. We could listen to this guard. We could hear them talking to people coming and going. We could totally know everything that was going on. And like, maybe one day there's going to be AI that can automate looking for people in camo, but it was really hard to do counter surveillance work. If someone is in camo and they're in an underbrush, man, you got to be really good. That's why camera systems are now being augmented by things like thermals. You've got thermal cameras, you've got spotter RF is another technology that uses radar, obviously, because this is hard looking through brush. So we told them, now that's not the only thing we did. We got really up close and personal. We actually did vehicle-based surveillance right there in the parking loop. And they said, how? What did you do? We're like, well, you get a nice vehicle, you get dark windows, you set up cameras and everything inside the car, you position all the cameras like this, and you just pull right in. And they said, how did you? No, you can't just pull in. I mean, we would see the cameras in the back. We're like, no, we put drapes over the cameras. So if they're in the back seat, you're not really going to notice them. You can just do this with GoPros. You get tinted windows, put a couple GoPros in the side of your car. There you go. Like, we can just park there and just idle and get footage of people coming and going. And they said, no, but you can't park there. You didn't have credentials from us. How did you park there? We tell people to move along. And I said, yeah, but we made the car invisible. And then the guy looked at me like, he's like, don't jack me around here. You made a car invisible? What kind of BS is that? I said, no, we made the car invisible. You get some Uber or Lyft trade dress, put that on there, a fake screenshot of the partner app on your phone. I'm here to pick up Chris. They're not answering though. Okay, I gotta pull over here. All right, I'll pull over here. And we just kept doing that with different vehicles. I'm here to pick some up. I'm still trying. They're telling me they're coming down. And the guards would just let us go for 15, 20 minutes sometimes, which is longer than a Lyft ride takes to time out. So the guards eventually, I'm sorry, man, I'll get out of your way. So we told the client, we're like, yeah, we were out there 15, 20 minutes, 50 feet from your door, watching everything. And they were stunned. They were absolutely stunned. And we said, well, we did that at first, but then eventually we spent like 5 hours right in front of your building, and nobody noticed. We were just kind of taking notes. Just put a warm body in front of your building, and nobody bothered us. Nobody asked us what we were doing. We just watched your building. Just sat there doing nothing but watching and writing shit down. And they were like, no, you could not do that. That's explicitly what we have trained our staff to say. If somebody's hanging around for no reason, they need to go say, excuse me, are you meeting someone? Excuse me, what are you doing here? How the hell did you do that? And I said, you're not going to like this answer. We made our people invisible. And now the guy's looking, he's like, no, what did you put an Uber logo on their shirt? I said, no, you did that with a car. In a big city, this is how you make a human being invisible. And it tugs at your heart, but it's the truth. There's Drew. There is Drew conducting surveillance. All this is makeup, all this dirt and the broken up shoes and everything. This is all fake. And this is Esther. Esther is conducting surveillance. She's writing down information on the back of this pizza boxes. This is how we do this. And society the people that society disregards, we will weaponize that until society gets its act together and starts treating everyone right. And actually, homeless people aren't invisible anymore. It's going to be a vector for us. Anything's a vector for us. So those are some of the stories that I have. There are many, many more. Ultimately, though, maybe you'll start seeing the world as I do, right? Maybe people like to say that these kind of stories are scary, right? Oh my God, I can't believe this is so awful. Like, you're showing everything is broken, everything is horrible. There's an artist who I really like. She used to be, still is married to Neil Gaiman. They had some trouble recently, but Amanda Palmer, if you don't know AFP, Amanda Palmer of the Dresden Dolls, right? So she's an amazing person, and I've seen her many times. She says that it's the job of artists and poets and storytellers. It's the job of the artist to take you into the darkness, to take you into the scary place. The darkness isn't scary because it's dark. The darkness is scary because you're alone. And if someone takes you with them, it's not as scary anymore. I wanted to bring you into this place with me, because if we're all in here together and we all understand it together, you see that these vulnerabilities aren't the end of the world. They're opportunities for growth and learning. They're opportunities to improve and be better. And that's why we do what we do. My team is like a bunch of scary individuals, but we're on your side. And we want to clarify these technologies. We want to improve these technologies. We want to work with the people who create them and install them and use them every day, so these systems that are supposed to protect us can do their job. So that's why we talk about this. And that's why I love sharing this kind of stuff with you. Definitely, if you got questions, I'm sticking around a little bit. I understand. I see the chat. Questions are going to be coming shortly. If you ever want to hit me up, I'm out there on that internet. I am at Deviant Olaf on most of the things. So by all means, just ping me with any questions you have. Let's see what we got. Oh, we're switching. Interesting. We've got, I see what we're doing here. So, oh yeah, so Sammy Kamkar, good guy. We work with Sammy. His company, if you want access control that is terrific, his company OpenPath is doing access control in a way that is better than most players on the market. And we recommend him. We worked with him on a lot of working groups. So excellent guy. And he did talk about combo locks. He even made a little like automatic combination lock decoder tool. It was very cool. What was the name of the screw that I mentioned for the hinge to turn your regular hinge into a security hinge? That is called a jam pin screw, J-A-M-B, jam pin screw. It's made by Major Manufacturing is the company. They make a lot of locksmith goods and supplies. I am looking for the key to my girlfriend's heart, says Anonymous. Well, I don't know, maybe I can give you this one. You know, it's very, very picturesque and very nice. And if you have enemies, the key to their heart is, you know, punch them really hard in the chest with brass knuckles, I guess. Someone says, I think I saw the CH751 attached to a multi-tool. Yes, so I do have sort of, it's not a multi-tool, it is a tool called a Key Smart. I think we have some on Red Team Tools. It's a key holder. And all of my super common keys, like the Door King key, the Lanier key, the elevator keys, I keep them on a little Key Smart because you can fold it up together and you know, just kind of keep it in your pocket. Has the TSA ever questioned me for my implanted chip? No, the RFID chips, and they never alert. That's, I think, what a lot of people say is if you're walking through, you know, like a magnetometer, a metal detector, well, I get the question a lot, what if you needed a CAT scan, right? None of those are these aren't ferrous, right? There's nothing ferrous in them. They're silicon and copper, and they're not gonna show up. They're not even gonna alert. Even in federal buildings and prisons and places where they have scanners that are really, really intense, they have never really picked up. There is one scanner, it's a chair you sit in. It's used for prisons to see if somebody has swallowed something. They would probably register on that. But most buildings, they'll never even show up. So no, TSA's never questioned me. Massage therapists question me. You know, they're working down my arm and then they say, are you okay? What is this? And I kind of explain it to them. Do you have a great new recipe, says Doug. Deviant Olaf is a master chef. I'm not the master chef. My wife is absolutely the master chef. Yeah, I mean, we've recently just been cooking a lot more vegetable matter because there's only so many steaks I can make. If you want, you can look for a talk online called the Hotel Room Gourmet, where we talk about all different ways to cook really gourmet dinners in like a hotel room on the road for conferences. But yeah, lately it's just the back garden. We're just doing lentils, so super low effort stuff. Lentils, and I, you know, slice up some steak, put it in the lentil soup. Where do you get that door handle strap again? So redteamtools.com, we have some. It's called a super grip lock. They're also sold by the little man and woman, the old couple. They're retired, but they have supergriplock.com, I think. So yeah, whatever the ones they send them to us, we put them on our site. If they're gone, then you can find them supergriplock.com. I like it because I'm very much a creature of routine. And when I'm leaving the hotel, I'm always, you know, packed up. Like I have all my stuff packed up, and that wedge, if I forget the wedge, I'm like, shit. And I gotta flip my luggage open and put the wedge away. But the strap, even if I'm just running out the door, I go, oh yeah, strap, take it off, shove it in my pocket. And then it's always in my carry-on bag. So I like that the most. TV shows with the most realistic hacking. Oh man, I can't speak as knowledgeably about hacking broadly electronically, although of course everyone like hated shows like Scorpion and praised shows like Mr. Robot in some ways. And Mr. Robot does show the use of that hunt pad, that badge grabber. They do that in one episode. I used to like some of the stuff on an old show called Burn Notice, which showed like tradecraft and because again, spies and people use really low tech methods to kind of, I mean, some of it was dumb. Some of it was very MacGyver-ish. But yeah, there's actually a talk that my friends and I gave called Lockpicking on the Silver Screen. It was at the Hope Conference, and it was all footage of locks and lock manipulation attacks from TV and film. And we talked about it, which ones were realistic and which ones weren't. What are some reasonable home security measures worth taking? Yeah, there is a number of ways that we can try to approach this one. And one of these days I've got some videos about this online on YouTube. Like I'm findable on YouTube with this name, right? I had a playlist that was called like Deve's Lock Advice. It's like 5 videos where I talk about making your security just a little bit better than the average. The old adage, right? If you're being chased by a bear, you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun the person next to you. So if your house is a little bit harder to break into than everyone else's in the neighborhood, criminal's going to move on. That's for sort of untargeted attacks. And I talk about certain deadbolts that are just a little bit more commercial grade. Use a key that's a little bit more copy resistant, things like that. If you are actually feeling at risk, if you think you are a notable individual, I mean, my wife and I have dealt with stalking and crazy people, and police and FBI got involved, and like, you know, having certain cameras, having your security in layers, frankly, having a network of people around you. Like, our home is a fortress, but we would have neighbors and friends that kind of said, hey, you know, this car's kind of been coming down the block. Do you know who this person was parked on the other side of the street? Do you know them? Because they knew what was up. They knew that we were going through some things in the past with a crazy Nazi asshole. So having, like, as all my anarchist, like, prepper friends, right? All these people, they say you don't build gear, and, you know, you build knowledge and you build networks. Knowledge and networks, much more than the gear. You're not going to buy security just off the rack. Which padlocks do you use on your Pelican? Here's a question off the rack. Abloy. Abloy is a Finnish company. They're part of the ISSA-LA group. Abloy uses a rotating disc core. It is super hard, like basically non-manipulatable. You never say anything is pick proof, right? There's no publicly known attack, defeat, bypass. And yeah, Abloy ProTech is the model. That's what I use. Love them to death. You've mentioned there is a lock. Oh, we had any recommendations for a starter lockpick set for my nephew? He got a cheap one off Amazon and it broke. I'm sorry that it broke. Yeah, the ones on Amazon tend to be kind of bad. So on redteamtools.com, we have a simple, you know, 9-piece set. It's the same exact set that is sold on Tool with 3 O's. So TOOOL.us. Tool.us is that nonprofit where I said I'm on the board and I teach people about lockpicking. This simple 9-piece set, very nice steel, different thicknesses of turner tool, different types of pick blade. I like those as a starter set. I've mentioned there's a locksmith who sells a bunch of keys. Do you have a link to that? Well, I can tell you the locksmith's company is very amusingly named hooligankeys.com. Hooligankeys.com is where he has the set that I mentioned and a lot of other keys that those of us in the industry use. So if you do penetration work, it is definitely a spot that you can pick them up. Are there practical alternatives to using heavy, you know, suitcases, let's say laptop-sized items? And not really, other than carrying them with you. Use full disk encryption, carry them with you. You can do things what are called cardinal direction markers and things, where if you have your laptop and other important stuff in your hotel room, most of you now have. You used to the Fieldcraft, you would do this with a compass, an actual physical compass. Most of us have compasses in our phones. What you can do is leave things around on your desk, and it looks like you just left them there. But actually line up use your compass to line up what their cardinal orientation is. If you have someone with you who can even take a photo for you, or things where you have like this magazine is next to this room key, is next to this pen, and you don't make it obvious, but like, so the letter A, the pen is pointing directly to the letter A in the name of this magazine title. And if anyone moves the magazine and puts it back, the pen probably won't point to exactly that letter. You know, my room key, even if it doesn't look like it, is on the desk right next to that light switch. I put it directly in front of the light switch. And if anyone picks it up and puts it back down, it might not be there when I get back. So things like that you can do. Are there any practical, we talked about that. Any recommendations for a front door lock? Yeah, that playlist of mine where I said, you know, Deve's lock advice. I have one video that's literally, I think, called My Deadbolt for the Past 10 years or something. I'll actually tell you the name of the video here. And in it, I talk about the Schlage B series, Schlage's deadbolts, the B series deadbolts, right? The Schlage B560, right? The B560, my deadbolt for the past 2 decades is the name of that deadbolt, right? Is the name of that deadbolt talk. And I talk about why I love it. I talk about how it works, how it is not the absolute top tier, but it gets you really close for like $50. And I talk about installing it, repinning it if you want to make it your own. So there's always something you can try to do. And yeah, just keep learning how security works. Don't just accept things at face value, I guess. I think that looks like all the questions. It's been weird talking just kind of to a blank void right here. Oh, there, all right. I can see some other people finally. There we go.
We're back.
Yeah. So I hope that was maybe what people were expecting. Maybe they weren't.
Well, regardless of what they were expecting, they got a lot more than they even thought was coming. That was awesome. That was mesmerizing, watching how insecure we all are, and how we better stay friends with you, Deviant.
How insecure we all are, but how secure we can all be. That's always the other side of that coin.
That's the message to take away. Absolutely. So I really want to thank you for taking the time. It was well worth the wait. You're very enjoyable to listen to, not just your knowledge, but your personality is awesome. So thank you again. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And stay safe out there. And maybe we'll see you in a live event at some point. We hope so.
Absolutely.
Okay, everyone stay safe, and we'll keep you posted when we're getting together next, but you know for sure we'll be right back here in the virtual world for our September and October meetings. We look forward to seeing you all. Bye-bye.